U.S. COVID infected military, U.S. COVID infected in America, 344,700. U.S. COVID deaths, 189,506. We have to equip them when they get out. Nobody who got in prison for marijuana, for example, immediately upon being released, they shouldn't be in there for that should be a misdemeanor because it got done before. I'm the only one up here. Go to Joe 30330. You know, I sit on the stand and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. I'm not going nuts. I'm not sure whether it was a medical school or where the hell I spoke, but it was on the campus. I propose, and I'm going to digress slightly. We're in a situation. The president asked me to head up a cancer moonshot.
President Biden, just to be clear, would you or would you not rejoin the TPP, yes or no?
I would not rejoin the TPP as it was initially put forward. The price for whatever the drug costs are. Well, folks, eliminate one tax loophole out of $1.6 trillion worth, $1.4 trillion worth. Out of $1.4 billion. It's hard to even say it, it's so much. And by the way, it costs a lot of money. It cost about $740 billion over 10 years. If you agree with me, go to Joe 30330 and help me in this fight. If you want to be part of this campaign, pick up your phones. Pick up your phones. Now, send a text to the word United to the number 30330, 30330, or 303330, or BOO, wait. To say that LGBTQT people have no civil rights. I took on Putin in terms of in terms of what was going on in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. My long friend, time friend, and she's a friend. She's been my friend in and out of public life. It will cost 1/30th. Costs a lot of money. Almost $740 billion to do what I want to do over 10 years. But not $30 trillion. Not $30 trillion. Among many qualified people, I'm the best qualified person for this job. And the reason is not just to help people who have or in fact are likely to get Alzheimer's. Because think of what's been adopted. Milton Friedman's notion that the only obligation. But that all changed with our Republican friends in the late 80s when they adopted Milton Friedman's notion that the only obligation we can do it, and it's going to take billions of dollars to do it, and we can afford to do it. We can't afford not to do it. Union workers, the UAW took incredible cuts in their future. Now we have $1.6 trillion worth of loopholes in the law. I never ever thought that I'd see what I saw in Charlotte. If we just were to reinstitute the CAFE standards. And I think Secretary, excuse me, I wasn't the press going to say I'm downgrading him by calling him Senator Booker. The fact is that the bills that the future president here, that the senator is talking about. I was the one that suggested to the President Obama, I don't want to confuse presidents here. Look, we provide a Medicare option. That's exactly what Brock and I talked about in the beginning. Another country and annexed a significant portion of it called Crimea. Right. He's saying that it was my boss, it was his fault. I got assault weapons banned for 10 years. It had to be reauthorized because of hanging chads in Florida. The last president said, no, I'm not going to reauthorize it. Saks or Benettons or Nike or whatever in the market in their places where the malls, and the what they call the moonshot, dealing with cancer, and subsequent after that set up the Biden Cancer Initiative. And here's the point. And they'd say to you, take my shotgun. I said, I have 3. I now have 5 because my son died and I have 3 of his. I have 5 shotguns. The fact of the matter is, I'm awfully sophisticated about why, how, and who built this country. Let me say this simply and clearly. They're not national assets. Wall Street bankers, CEOs, hedge fund managers, no matter how good and decent they are, they're not the ones who built this country. That triumph of democracy and liberalism over fascism and autocracy. When I got out of school, when Bobby Kennedy and Dr. King had been assassinated in the 70s, late 70s, when I got engaged, poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. We don't have here in Miami, in Florida. You don't have it here, and that is, if you keep an audience, there's an invasion of Hispanics. 65 out of every 100 jobs today require training beyond high school. 65 out of every 100. $30 trillion. You've been a great friend for a long time, and your Paul son is remarkable. You know, they also got that last year. And for folks in the working class that are below 400, they will, in fact, increase their premiums, will increase the generosity of the premium tax credit they now get. They go to school from a middle class or upper middle class, and House, having heard, the estimates are as many as 4 million more words spoken. You know, the next thing we got to do here along the line to report people's dignity, restore it. We're the most powerful military, not hyperbole, most powerful military in the history of the world. That's not hyperbole. Things changed. You had over 40 kids shot at Kent State on a beautiful lawn by the National Guard. There are a whole lot of things, and guess what? America didn't live up to that promise for most of the people at the time. The people of color, for women. Farm ownership and cooperating loan and operating loans. I remember sometimes when my dad was restless, my mom would say, because our rooms are next to one another, I'd say, the next morning, what's wrong? I said, your dad can't sleep. He's just staring at the ceiling thinking, what happens? We have to start rewarding work, not just wealth. The first speech stood up. The former chancellor of Germany stands up. She says, we have to go to loan. International leaders spoke about it. You had people like you had people like the former chairman and leader of the party in Germany. You had Angela Merkel stand up and say how terrible it was. We provide efficiency for appliances. That saves billions of gallons of gasoline. I mean, billions of $2.3 billion worth of, $500 billion in savings and 2-something billion metric tons of CO2 going in the air. Where an overwhelming number of families, ICE walks into a small Mississippi town, and in fact arrests hundreds of workers. By investing $100 billion in education, in global warming efforts. It's a whole range of things. And that's why we need to make post-secondary education affordable, available, and training, reducing the crushing cost of student loan debt. What's not to like about Vermont in terms of the beauty of it? And what a neat town. This is sort of a scenic, beautiful town. While Trump is pursuing a damaging and erratic trade war without any strategy, by the way.
Mr. Biden, they say these gaps in your electability.
Well, that's what we determine pretty soon, won't it?
Thanks, guys.